Well, hey there, friend, and welcome back for another episode of the Your Hair Mentor podcast, where I'm your host and your hair mentor, Crystal Green. And I invite you to come take a listen to the top leaders and thinkers and experts and innovators in the beauty industry as they share their stories of triumph and struggles and success in creating their businesses behind the chair. I hope you enjoy these episodes just as much as I did recording them. See you on the inside, friend.
Awesome. Yay, Alicia. I am so happy to have you back on the podcast here today. I really enjoyed our conversation last time, and I'm super excited to bring you in to talk about some different stuff today that I know you've had some experiences with. So, for anyone that doesn't know, can you give me like a quick intro of who you are and what you're bringing to the table today?
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to come back here. My name is Alicia Soulier, and I am the founder and CEO of Salon Scale technology. So essentially, I created a solution to a problem I was having as a former salon owner. I created an app that measures hair color in real time. That has expanded to companies all over the world that are using our product now, and we've now graduated and added more than just the cost calculator. So we're handling the entire back bar at the hair salon. But today, I think, it's always talking about the entrepreneur behind everything and how do you dive deeper and how do you have that ability to think deep and think far and understand, these things in ways you can leverage, and so when we talk about things like venture capital investment, financial modeling, economics, whatever it is, that's really what I'm excited to talk about today is how to, and then how to like not be insecure about it and how to dive into it and be curious, because the curious side of you is really what's going to help unlock the knowledge that you seek.
I love that. I feel like anytime we stay curious, we find out new things in the world, right?
Oh, always,
Yeah.
always. It's an important thing to always have.
It is. I feel like it like sets your ego down and allows you to be open for new things when you're curious.
Yeah, I think sometimes, we really want to know. And because we've defined ourselves that if we know something, that means we're of value. And we've taught, young children this into, our adult life that if you don't know something, that means you're incompetent. So, that starts to fuel those emotional sides of yourself where you feel like you're not good enough, you don't know something, whatnot. But it's actually quite the opposite. If you actually lean into the unknown and the curiosity and I seek to understand more than I need to know, you will likely grow a lot more, and you'll get yourself out of those moments where you feel maybe imposter syndrome.
Yeah, which I'm sure you experienced being a female entrepreneur in a land of tech, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think it's extremely difficult. I felt like I was like on the set of Rocky every time I'd go to like pitch pitch the company. It's like, oh my God, here we go again. But you really it's so unfamiliar for me. And I'm a trained hairstylist, right? So I walk into a room and I'm like, how are these guys going to take me seriously as a stylist, first of all, as a female, second of all, and then in the salon technology space. I mean, this is something that's pretty hard to say, please give me your millions of dollars so that I can change the world for other stylists just like me. um, and it actually, what I realized right away was, I did end up having a gift that I didn't realize, and that was, I had a passion and a purpose, and they just so happen to have money. And so I think sometimes that's the thing, is sometimes when you have a real big purpose in your life and you really have something, you'll get through that imposter syndrome, because the more people you're around, they're going to validate it, and they're going to support you, and that's a true indication that you're meant to do what you're doing.
I love that. I feel like I try to emulate that every day, you know? Okay, so will you tell us how long? I guess I'm curious, like from the first conception of Salon Scale, how long did it take for you to get to the point where you were like walking into that room with the Rocky scene in your head making deals?
um, Pretty quick, actually. So I joined an accelerator quite quickly, probably in the first, like within the first month or two of me having this idea. I joined this accelerator that taught me about pitching and taught me about that. And it just so happened that they had some type of like almost like Shark Tank style investor forum that was coming in town. And so I had to make my first pitch deck, and I had to start pitching within like really the first 3 months of me starting the product. And I remember going into that room and like, yes, I had stayed up all night. I had practiced line for line exactly what was going to happen. But I remember thinking like, oh my God, this is like Dragon's Den. Like my life could change after this. And it's just such a like cute little naive part of myself there that it takes a little bit more than just the first conversation with someone to get a check. And I think, you know, from there I started to curate exactly how I wanted to kind of message it. And it's just like every other sale, you have to, you know, the goal is to get the next meeting. And so no matter what, you know, that kind of became the process that I ran when I would raise capital, is just to make sure that we were always getting that next meeting so that we could move along.
Right. So then when you had your first investor, it was just kind of like a kind of a lump sum of money to get the company started and start creating the app, and then from there it grew? Or like, can you kind of describe that a little bit for us here?
Yeah, I mean, you can do a bunch of different things. So it really depends on your surroundings and how easy it is for you to access some capital. So in my particular situation, I think, you know, with an early stage startup, you're going to be, first of all, the investors are going to back you. So they need to see founder first, and then they need to see a market opportunity. Is this a big market? Is this an investable market? So if they can see that the problem you're solving is big enough to invest in, and they really like you, you're likely going to get your first round of checks. If there's still something a little confusing there, it might just take a little bit of time, but that's like usually the first indicator. So at this stage, you don't really need to have a strong, you know, financial model or even revenue. You just need to like be able to articulate what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Now, like I was saying on the check sizes, so if you have access to a lot more capital, I mean, for us being where I'm from, there's not a lot of venture capitalists, and there's not a lot of even angel investors or people that even knew what that was. So I had to move quicker. So I knew the check sizes were going to be smaller, and I knew that, you know, I wasn't going to be able to raise a substantial round to begin with. So I went with smaller tranches, is what you call it. So essentially, instead of me raising $5 million right off the get-go, I started with 400,000. And then, you know, a year later, I raised another 686,000. And then I raised, every year I would raise a little bit more money. And that was just my strategy to get money in so I could just get back to building the business. Because raising money it's a full-time gig sometimes. You're networking, you're keeping people up to date. You need sometimes you need a due diligence package, which is just where they can kind of see information on what you're trying to do. So it's overwhelming. So I think when you run it properly, it's kind of better to sometimes just get back into to building that business. So the faster you can do that, the better. Mm-hmm. And then if you are in centers where there's a lot more capital, there's like a lot more funding, let's say California, for example, you likely are going to be able to access a lot more money a lot quicker. You're going to get no's a lot faster just because the pool is a lot bigger. And you could probably take your time to really plan out, you know, what does the next 24 months look like? And then go ahead and raise that amount of cash so that you can execute your vision.
Wow. Okay, so I love all of this, but I feel like we might need to unpack this a little bit for a hairstylist that's listening that might have a good idea about a business. Let's say they want to become some sort of online educational, you know, entrepreneur, right? This is probably already over their head. They're like, what are we even talking about right now? So can you take me back to like, what is like the first step? I know one of the things we talked about off camera here is like, there's 3 different ways that you can start getting money in a business, right? It was yes. Like from your audience, sponsorship, and there was one more. Can we start there and then kind of like plant the seed of where you start to have this idea of money coming in besides just client interactions?
Yeah. So really honestly, there's kind of almost like three main funnels for your business. To get money in your business, the first one that's the cheapest is to have more revenue. So sell more of your product.
Yeah.
Um, and if you could sell more, you're going to get more money in the business. So that's like the first one. So it tends to be the easiest and the cheapest because it doesn't cost you debt and it doesn't cost you equity. So it's that. And then it also doesn't cost you too much time, essentially. The second layer too is going to be that debt. So being able to go take on a loan or whatever else. It's the second one. Takes a little bit more business planning, might take you a little bit more time to do that. So it's available. It's a little bit harder to do that. And then the third one is funding. So there's things that are called non-dilutive funding, and then there's things that are called dilutive funding. So when you go and take money from an investor, you're saying, I'm going to give you a chunk of the business, a percentage of this business, to invest in me today for what I think this company is going to be in the next year or two or 6 or 12 or whatever your roadmap is. And so typically what you want to do is you want to make sure, like any investor that comes in at that stage, is this company going to be $1 billion business? Because essentially, you're wanting to fund it as such that it's going to become that type of exit. And then the other side too is on the funding side is actually grants, like any grants or any type of there's usually programs or stuff like that you can apply for that can also help you fund you on some of your growth initiatives, or maybe you want to hire certain types of people and there's a digital marketing grant that you can kind of get, so there's many different vessels that you can use to like fund your business to kind of get to the next thing. But the really big thing you need to ask yourself, no matter what, if you're a hairstylist, you're running a business, you're podcaster, you're running, and it doesn't matter really what business you are, you have to ask yourself, like, what am I trying to do? Like, what's the vision? What is this business, like, what is it? Is it going to stay just centralized in one state or one province? Is it going to become, nationwide? Is it going to be global? Like what's the, geographic impact this business has? And then in that geographic impact, just do the back math, which is, how many people can I actually acquire, and what would the average amount they would pay? That gives me my total addressable market. So, when you do that thing, are you looking at a $10 million business? Or are you looking at, a $500 million business when you do that calculation? And so that kind of helps gear you as to see if you are venture backable or not. And that really helps to make sure that, you have that side of things, but then it also allows you to make sure that you can access any type of funding to be able to execute, again, that vision of what you want to do with your business.
That's a really interesting concept. I've never thought of that before. Is like, like casting a wide net and kind of making an assumption of all the people you can help or all the customers you can get, and then kind of going backwards from there to calculate what it could be worth. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like, let's say if you do that and you're like, okay, if I took everyone in North America and I have access to 1 million subscribers, and my average is, $1 or $10 a month, you're looking at, what is that, like 10 million a month? So like you're looking at like a $120 million a year business, right? And so with that kind of situation, it allows you to really understand that is the total market opportunity. So when you look at your current, like, maybe how much of the market do you have? Do you have 1% of the market, or do you have, 0.25% of the market? And then now that's kind of the goal too for yourself, is to try and penetrate more of that market. As it exists, it's always available.
Wow. So I'm assuming you did this with Salon Scale too, right? And so can I ask, like, when you did that, what was the number that you came up with for the potential of your business? I mean, because I would imagine it could, if you put that in the hands of every hairstylist,
You bet.
what you got?
Oh, it's great. It's a good one. So based off our current financial model, we have about a $1.2 billion market opportunity.
Woo, girl.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That is
We're going to just
incredible.
throw those billions out there,
Yes.
But yeah, it's about a $1.2 billion market opportunity, based off that current financial. And then, that doesn't that doesn't also include the expansion of adding other things to it. So, technology is such a beautiful gift, because it's something that is usually a smaller investment monthly, but it's a reoccurring thing. It's such a beautiful business to run. Like, I absolutely love running a SaaS company. It's a really neat way to look at business a little differently.
It is, but I feel like as we're talking about this, I can also imagine a salon owner using this idea too. Like, okay, so they've got 7 chairs in their salon, and what is the potential of each of those chairs to earn every day, right? Like, how many people are they serving every single day? And then from there, trying to figure out what that business should look like if it's running at full capacity, and then kind of work backwards from there to meet that goal, right?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, you just literally, I love where your brain just went on that, because it's such a brilliant thing to think about. Like, if you're sitting here stressing because you can't pay for something, like, let's say you have 30 grand in debt. So take that number, 30 grand, divide $30,000 by how many, what is the average amount someone spends in your salon a year? Is it 1,500 bucks? So how many people is that? 100? 30, 60, like whatever it is. Then you take those people and you say, hey, if you prepay for your entire year right now up front, I'll give you X% off, maybe another 20% worth of savings, but only give it to that amount. Now you have the 30 grand up front. You have the money to pay down those debts. You're not paying interest on that. And you only had to take, 30 or 40 of your clients to do that, to preset yourself. So you have the cash flow up front to support whatever growth comes from then on out.
I literally have goosebumps right now from that. That just was like, what an idea. Like, I've never heard anyone talk like that about salon businesses, and that is brilliant. Like, I can think of off the top of my head clients of mine that I used to see that would have been like, hell yeah, I'll prepay. Like, they want to pre-book their appointments for the rest of the year anyway, and they're 100% committed to coming in. Offering them a discount to prepay ahead of time, they'd be all for it.
Yes. Yes. And it just helps, right? Because then you're in a position, like, you can get that interest off yourself, and I think that's sometimes we think, oh my God, is this ever going to go away? It won't. Like, it literally will not, unless you have a big strategy to kind of do such. So these are just kind of little ways that you can kind of manipulate cash to be able to work in your favor.
Mm-hmm. I've heard other people say, with like audiobooks and podcasts and stuff, like, there is enough money in the world, and it's just a matter of figuring out how you can capture that.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, and leaning into it. I mean, it's so attached to your core values. Like, it's so, it's so deep within, and spending as much time to invest in yourself, to understand that you are worth every single penny. And it will just come to you. Like, it'll just attract. Like, that's exactly what will happen. And so I think sometimes when we live these limitations in our mindset, and we also live a supporting role. Remember, as a hairstylist, everybody that comes in is coming because they're like in a struggle, or this happened or whatever, and you're supportive. So it's really hard when you're a supportive role, to also be in an ascending role. So sometimes when you win, you feel guilty, or you get something, you feel guilty, then you have to give it away, because the person you are, that's the nature that you are. So it's important to understand that the more you also get, the more you get to give as well. So just really leaning into that is important. So yeah, I think for me, I spent a lot of time on personal development, and a lot of time hiring coaches. Mm-hmm. Like, I invest, like, I think I'm like close to like 28, almost $3,000 a month in just personal coaching. Like, right. I would have never thought I'd ever spend that kind of money on coaching, but yet now it's completely unlocked. There's no overwhelming and no over processing, because I got people for every ounce of my craziness.
I love it. I love it. I know, like, at offhand, you're like, holy cow, that's a lot of money to spend on that, but the amount that probably makes you in return is totally worth it.
And the people around me, mm-hmm. because I'm an external processor. Me too. I haven't been fully diagnosed yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm ADHD as well. I think the big thing is when you're an external processor, you stress the people out around you. So your moods, you're like a one big mood swing around everybody else. And so when you don't have that person that can create action from your vision, or I have an idea and someone doesn't jump on it right away, it leaves you really frustrated, and it leaves you in a position where, you can feel very overwhelmed and stressed very easy. It also leads you to a path of codependency where you really need other people to solve your problems. It's almost like, it's almost like you don't have a limb, or you don't have a voice, or you don't have this, that you're looking for other people to solve those problems. And so what happens is, I think the biggest tool I learned is, instead of externally process, I had to internally process. So internalize it first, document it to delegate it. And if you don't document to delegate, it likely won't happen. So that really helped make sure that I didn't just go in, oh, I have an idea, and tell someone. I literally took the time to make sure all the thoughts were out fully, or else it would have, I actually joked, I was like, it feels like Tinkerbell. As an entrepreneur, you're like Tinkerbell. And when people stop believing in you or what you have, you start to die. Like, it's just such an old, and so you need people to keep believing in your vision, keep believing in Neverland, right? And I think that's just the thing, is to really, really take the time to know how special it is that you are a visionary, and how special you are, that you have this gift, that you want to make the world better and more beautiful. That is the most incredible thing. And it's a gift that you have. And so to celebrate it, take time to really process it for yourself first.
That's a really good takeaway. And I feel like I can relate to that myself. It's interesting, coming from someone who worked behind the chair for many, many years, we get constant validation from our clients, instant gratification and validation that we're doing the right thing because we're making them feel good. They're telling us, I love it. I love you. I love everything you're doing. And then to step away from that into something else where you're not getting feedback all the time, or like validation from other people all the time, you have to look for that somewhere else. Right. And a lot of times it's in us, but it's hard to tap into that when we're so used to like the outward validation from our clients. And so, I'm still learning how to do that on a daily basis, even though people tell me all the time, oh, you're doing so great. You're doing a great job. And I'm like, really? Am I? Because I don't know if I hear it enough. I have to like go internally and figure out my mindset, where I'm going and what I'm doing, which is really interesting.
Oh gosh, I echo that. It's one of the hardest things I'll ever have to do, honestly. And I think taking just a beat to have some reflection, it's the reflection sets your new pulse and your new pace. So what happens is, like, if you think of it, like, I always think of it like a speedboat, like, and this is what happens to, like, every single one of us do this, is if you get your sales, you close that account, you launch your podcast, you launch your business, you're up and you're super excited. Well, for every single high, there's going to be a low. Like, you can't ascend and not have the not have the bad come with the good, right?
Yeah.
And so what will happen is, after your really big high, or you won that thing, or you finally accomplished that thing, or you finished that color correction that took you forever and you knocked it out of the park, you're going to feel really awesome. And then within 24 hours, you're going to feel really shitty. And it just crashes. And if you don't take the time to celebrate in that little bit, or reflect on what you learned, what you discovered, that actually sets like the new level, the new you, because now you're a master at consultations, you're a master at your craft, or you've mastered this thing. And if you reflect or you journal that, now your new level, or your new bar, is that new you. So that you're not the old you that didn't know how to do that. Now you know how to do it. And so that can kind of help with the like flapping around of like crash, going through it. But it's inevitable. You're going to change regardless. Like, we're all going to change. And it's just to like welcome the new you and embrace the new you, and just be super grateful for yourself, for having the courage to want to be who you are.
Yeah. It's funny, the more people that I talk to, especially people that have had what I would consider to be really good success in this industry and beyond, whether you're an educator, a creator, tech company, all the things. The biggest thing that I see is that a lot of it is mindset. Like, we're all full of really, really good ideas, but having the right mindset to work with it, it's like, I don't know. I used to kind of eye roll at like, work on yourself and your mindset. I'm like, whatever, I'm fine. My mindset is great. But now I get it. It's like a lot of our drive and our energy and our path comes from within. And so I know one of the things that we talked about before we started recording was, I think you called it like a profit mindset.
Yeah.
Give me a little taste of that, because I feel like a lot of, especially salon owners, hairstylists, we're in this like growth mindset, right? Growth meaning like we're getting more clients and we're making more money, or exposing new people on Instagram. Everything is like grow, 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 grow. And then we forget that there's another mindset to think about too that is really important.
Yeah, I think, we're really top of funnel focused, which I call it's like it's growth minded, meaning you really love revenue, and you really like to look at, what are my sales, what are my sales, what are my sales, right? And what we don't look at is, what was I left with, and when was the last time you said, was I in budget this month? Probably not.
Ugh,
So
budgets.
right, it's it's kind of, ooh, it's an icky feeling, because you're like, yeah, you have to kind of, it's the gas and brake kind of analogy, right? But sometimes, when you're in the mindset of profit, profit is decreasing your expenses or maintaining your expenses and increasing your revenue, maximizing your profitability. And so it's a true mindset. And what happens is, I've seen a lot of people, they're tired, their businesses are running them, this is their last chance to make something. They worked for 3 to 5 years building this incredible business. They've soaked every single penny into it, and now the business needs to start paying them, because it's just not paying them, because they put every single dollar into growth. They just put it into like hiring and training and, parties and coffees and, events and whatever else, and furniture. And so what happens is, when you move to the profit side, you're going to have to put a heavy focus on that expenses. And so that's where the like not as much joy comes, because that's where you have to start to like cut a lot of things, whether it's, the extra, maybe you don't need the Nescafe, like you might need to like dial that back a bit, or you might need to like stick to a budget and, make sure you're staying within that. And maybe you can't let your, team go to any education all the time. Maybe it's a quarterly budget of what can be spent and what can't be spent, right? So there's like little things that you have to know, that you're staying within that kind of zone. So a profit mindset is you're going to be a hard ass. You're going to have to be really hard on making sure everyone stays within budget to hit your profit mark. And so and profit is everyone's goal. So it's not just the salon owner's goal, it's the entire salon's goal. Like, why would you not want to work for a profitable business? Like, that means like when we're ready to invest in back in growth, there'll be money to do that. So it's just kind of being transparent with why we're doing what we're doing. And I was telling you this when we started, which was, the entire salon industry is just growth minded. So what happened is, most salons are just really focused on investing all their dollars back in their business, and they just keep asking, like, I don't know where my cash flow is, I don't know where my money is. And it's going into completely the growth side. So it's going into the over budget, the overspending, the education that you simply are not bringing in enough to support that growth. And or if you took the education or you took the class, and let's say you put $10,000 in education, did you increase your price point or your revenues to make 20 grand the next year? Because that's what you have to start thinking about, is like, if you're going to invest those dollars, it's to grow, right? So you really need to measure your growth, and not just like spend, 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 and hope that it'll just come. You need the strategies kind of invested in there too. But yeah, there's a huge difference between growth and profit. And sometimes, I do see, that it takes a certain mindset to kind of get behind that.
For sure. I almost envision like the growth mindset as this like little like hard worker party animal kind of thing. And then the profit mindset as this like shaking the finger kind of bitchy attitude of like, we're not going to do that. Right. It's like the little devil and the angel on your shoulders.
Exactly. Exactly. and it's like, it's hard. It's hard to do it, but it's so rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is more rewarding than running a sustainable business.
Right.
Nothing is more rewarding than that. Yeah. And so don't stop the good fight, and keep going through it. It's no different than, how annoying it is to keep your house and your closet organized and clean. It's like, just make sure you once a year you do the clean.
Mm-hmm.
You clean your numbers up and you just match it once a year. Just give yourself that, and you're going to feel amazing because you're going to know where everything is.
Right.
So that's all you have to do, is just commit to yourself, to your spring cleaning of your business a bit, and make sure that you're in line with what you're trying to achieve.
And then I have to imagine it's only when you are embracing the profit mindset and you have a sustainable business that you can even consider doing something like getting, investors in your business, because they're not going to be interested if you're just in the growth mindset and you're just spending all your money, right?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, it depends on it really honestly depends on what kind of business is being invested. So if you think of a brick and mortar business, or these are like lower growth, annual growth companies. So they would grow anywhere from really like 8 to 15% year over year, 20% at the high end. So these are going to be salons. If your salon's going to be hitting 8 to 20% year over year growth, that's a definitely opportunity to make another location. And that's why we would invest in that business. And so you're going to be looking for more of like private wealth. So you're going to be looking for someone more on the private equity side. And so their risk tolerance, or their portfolio, what they look for is cash flow. They're going to be looking at a multiple of your cash flow. So really seeing, what does this business bring in? How often does the cash come in and out, so that they can do their analysis on it. And essentially they just do a simple calculation, and that's what's going to qualify you for some investment. If you are over that, like I'm talking like you are 50, 100, 300% year over year growth, you're probably more like a tech company. And so typically, you have a bigger market, right? Like if you think of Salon Scale, I don't sell just to like one state or one province or one country. It's a global opportunity. So if you can think about it as, when I expand on a location, that like it's anywhere in the world, and
Yeah.
it's not, I don't have to make a store and make a setup. Like it's very, very quick to kind of get there. So that's why you get that crazy amount of growth. And that's why a lot of people invest in these software companies, because they can get out there faster, just with money going into um, essentially acquisition costs. But yeah, so essentially those are the two kind of things, is just figuring out what is the potential of this business. And then you kind of are going to be aligned with the right type of investment or investor that will be able to come in and help you get to what you want. And I will say, this is like, taking people's money is no joke. It's like a huge responsibility. For me, myself, I do have a board that I work for a board. So, I started Salon Scale as I am the founder CEO, but I do work for Salon Scale. I work for the board of directors for Salon Scale. So things, change when you take people's money, right? And so there is that to kind of think about. And you are responsible as the CEO of the business to have a return. So you have to show that there's at least a sight to get to what you're saying is going to happen. So yeah, there's no more bootstrapping for this gal over here. It's I gotta hit some goals. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can only imagine what that feels like. So, as a hairstylist, we only have one person to answer to, usually, our client, right? We have that one person to impress, that one person, we're taking their money, and that's it. And I can imagine when that's much, much greater with a lot more money, the pressure is on.
Oh yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And I also encourage any salon owner to like reinvent the wheel on your model. Like maybe it's something super unique and different. Maybe you have a subscription salon. Maybe you're
Yeah.
like, you have like 4 haircuts that you just, every year you come up with your new haircut, and it's like the same collection, and you do the same color. You don't even experiment. You're like, this is the exact thing I do on everybody. And so you've cut your expenses down, your customers book in for that exact same thing every time. And it's just like a subscription model kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're like, hey, I could like make, 10 of those locations all around the world. And then I'm just the creative director. I just come up with the haircuts or the looks for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking outside the box like that makes it just different. And you can put yourself into a whole different space. You've seen this happen in the food space, like when we look at like donuts and cookies and whatnot, like, you're like, geez, like who doesn't love a good crumble cookie? And look at how easy it is to, how they reinvented the wheel there. Like that is fantastic.
Right. But it's so simple at the same time too. Since we spoke last time, I've put together a curriculum for hairstylists that to me is like almost too simple, but I think that's what makes it so good about customer service. And there's three things. It's knowing who you are, knowing who you serve, and know how to serve them. And I feel like that is applicable across every business in there, right? Like we were just talking about that. It's like as a salon, who are you? As a salon, who do you serve? And then as a salon, how do you serve them? Find your unique flavor and just stick with it. Lather, rinse, repeat,
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's like the more obsessed you are at knowing who you're serving and how and why, like it keeps the most clearest communication, and then it allows you to also have that purpose that you're deep rooted in the why do I do what I do, and that allows you to really want to go to work.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I know. And even like doing this podcast, like who am I and who do I serve and how do I serve them? It's like, it just makes everything so clear and concise and also probably easy to wrap up in a package and offer to someone as an investor, right? Like, here's very clearly what I'm doing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also too is like, there's two sides too. I always say is like, you don't have to figure this out overnight. So don't be hard on yourself if you feel like you're still like, what's my purpose? Like everyone's going to question that stuff. So like things, just know that like things always come to you. And you're always going to be harder on yourself than anybody else. And you may not understand why you started something or why you did that. But it always leads you on to something else, or it leads you on to the next thing. And so like there was a reason why, and in the end you'll be like, oh, that was why I did that, or that's why this thing happened. But I think sometimes we're just way too hard on ourselves because we're perfectionists and we want to kind of do that. Yeah, and I just think that on the investment side and on anyone that has an interest to raising money or doing all that stuff, I always say if I can do it, anyone can. And I think it's just, the reality is I'm a trained hairstylist and I have raised over $3.5 million.
Boom.
And it's not like I'm very proud of my accomplishments and being able to do that, but I also echo to say that it is very possible that you yourself can be just like me and be able to do that as well.
Oh, I love that so much. And I feel like that is a beautiful way to wrap up this conversation. I am so grateful that you came on here and shared some insights with us today. Alicia, you're a gem, and I look up to you. I think you're a very inspirational woman.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me again. And I'm just always so honored that you asked.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see where this goes and what you're doing. And I hope that this conversation sparks some excitement in my listeners to kind of continue their journey and get some investment on their end.
Get that money.
Get that money. And we are going to stop right there. Get that money, babes. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch, Alicia.
Thank you.
All right, friend. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Your Hair Mentor podcast. It has been my pleasure to be here as your host. Again, my name is Crystal Green. And until next time, my friend, as I always love to say, have a wonderful hair day, and I'll see you then. Okay, bye.